reason we're talking to you about it is because we think this project's produced some results that can be of interest to the food industries, and we've got a plan for where we think it should be going. So this was our project, 9 of us, some of whom are here. And there's the aim. Our aim when we started off was to provide a mechanism by which consumers can find out about the food they buy. There's an interesting thing happened with food technology. Some time ago people were very close to their food because they bought locally sourced food. They probably knew the people who made it. They probably knew the farms where it was grown. And that sort of link has broken now. And we're in a situation where people buy food from large shops and they don't know where it came from. So we've provided a system where the consumer can actually find out almost everything about their food. And that's what we're going to tell you about today. And the important thing about the way this system works is that producers provide information into a database. And so the thing I want to talk about first is the basis on which this system actually allows them to do that. And that is that they maintain ownership of the information they put into the system. And my colleague, Mr. Philippin, will be telling you a lot more about how the system actually works. We're a bit out of order, but what we wanted to say here is no one is losing control of any information in this system. It's the producers who choose how much the consumer sees. The other important thing is that what we built is a single transnational system. It works across the whole of the European Union. And that is very important because if you think about any system giving consumers information, if you are a producer who sells across Europe, the thought of having to provide individual information for different marketplaces is a situation you would never want to get into. So we actually provide one system across Europe, but the system doesn't necessarily look the same everywhere. And essentially the way it ends as an outcome is that the products are serialized. Every single unit, every single packet gets its own website, which the consumer, the purchaser, can look at using a mobile phone, using an in-store tablet. And the website gives, well, it gives what you want it to give really, but typically it will give marketing information, information on the origin of the product, who the suppliers of the ingredients were, and if those suppliers are part of the system, detailed information on all of that. Dates and times of manufacture, things like cold chain information, product ingredient analysis, all sorts of information like that. And the website can be simply accessed on an in-shop terminal using an extended barcode, or it can be accessed by the consumer themselves on their smartphone using a QR code. What's also important about this system is it fully conforms to all the relevant standards, the EPC global specifications. And it also provides full information sharing between people in the supply chain, and that's a collateral benefit that again Mr. Philippin has got something to say about in a little bit. So who pays for this? We developed a fairly simple commercial model based on what Google does. So if you're a supplier, you want to come into the system, then you essentially pay per hit. If the consumer doesn't access your information, you don't pay anything. If the consumer does access your information, then the information's helped you make a sale, and in that case, you've got some benefit, so you're going to pay a little bit of money. And that money is needed really to maintain the infrastructure for the system, which is a membership organisation called the Farm to Fork Foundation. And we also have group membership schemes and what we're saying, and we're presenting it to you here because the biggest advantage here is for early adopters, and people here are right in at the beginning of the scheme, well, not as at the beginning as our participants, but very early on. Gives you a good view through the supply chain, and again, I'm not going to say very much about this because you'll get more information from my colleague. Gives you added benefits of process traceability. You can begin to see, if you're a producer producing one part of the product and you're buying ingredients from other suppliers, you can begin to see their information because you're a consumer. You can also see information about what happens to your product when it leaves the factory. So there's lots of added value in there. So the important thing about this is consumer trust. It's an open, shared system. How does that provide individual businesses with competitive advantages? Well, it depends on this open common infrastructure, which is a database, which is web access services, which is defined protocols. But that doesn't mean you can't provide your own system which provides your benefits to work with it. And that can be your own production data gathering system. It can be business productivity applications. It can be your own presentation to the consumer. So the common open infrastructure is maintained by the Farm to Fork Foundation. It consists of a database system, defined web services, some protocols and standards. And for people wanting to get involved in this, they will need to produce a system which gathers data from their own production process, which should be produced by accredited systems integrators using production tracking systems, business productivity applications and so on. So I'm going to finish here really with my call for an expressions of interest. We're looking for people to come and join the organisation. We're in the early days of building it. We need people who can help grow the system in their own countries. We need national organisations. We want producers and retailers who want to have this advantage for their product and for their sales. And we want systems integrators who can begin to provide the kind of systems that suppliers will need. And my colleague will tell you about what those sort of systems are. So if I hand over to him, and he can give you a much more technical background on what's happening here. I think the slides are on that.
Hello everyone, my name is Piero Filippin. I'm one of the senior consultants at the university. We are one of the part of the consortium that designed the system. And this presentation is to answer three major questions you can have about the system. What is Farm to Fork? Is why, as a company, as a food producer, as a food company involved in food logistics, or as a retailer, why do I need it? And probably the question you are more interested into is if I adopt it, how much it's going to cost me. So, what is Farm to Fork? We are talking about the Farm to Fork system now, not the Farm to Fork as a project. The Farm to Fork system is in the lowest terms is a piece of software. We collected all the set of tools that are shared between all the steps in the food production, all the various management tools to manage your products, your assets, your ingredients, your production, all the ID you need, all the documentation are defined in the system. We found what is the common set of tools a company needs. We give away this tool at a very, very low price. As Bob Newman said, it will be a subscription system, but we expect the cost of it to be roughly like owning a website. So very low to adopt, and in any case much lower than anything else you can find in the market. This project has been sponsored by the European Union, so we managed to have a solution at a very, very low cost. We have ways to collect information. We tend to collect the information that are required by law in the food industry. We are not adding anything. In particular, the system is quite open. You don't have to do something you don't want to do. It's based on your needs. And the system is especially designed to share information with your business partners. What happens in the food industry is, as a producer, you buy ingredients, you produce some of the ingredients, you produce some of the product, and you have to have traceability. You have to be able to tell where your ingredients are coming from, what did you use, and you pass this information to the next step in the supply chain that has to get this sort of information and use them in some way to add their steps and pass this information again to the next step. There's a lot of data to be managed. The system has been developed by people that have more than 10 years experience in the SME community. The system has been designed with small businesses in mind, so we try to keep the price as low as possible. We have 9 pilots running all across Europe in different sectors, so we have quite a bit of experience in the sort of information you have to manage and to handle. But what Farm to Fork is? Farm to Fork is all about the information. Is information collection, is information exchanging with your business partners, and this information sharing that is, in our experience, is something that is really lacking in industry. Companies pay a lot of money at the moment to collect data. These data are collected to fulfill some sort of law requirement. This data is not used to make your business better, and this data is not shared. And one of the things we tend to teach people is the value of sharing information with your business partners, because the information you get back from them is extremely valuable. As I say, we talk about information. Nothing of what we do is not something that is not mandated by the law. We don't try to enforce you tagging of animals if you don't want to do it. We don't enforce you to collect data you don't want to collect. We don't enforce any particular technology on you. We work with your business to see what you have and trying to make a consistent use of it and improve your information management. Again, in our experience, most companies, as they collect the data only to fulfill the law, they make the minimum effort, and most of the traceability now in the world is paper-based, because paper is perceived as a very cheap way of managing information, and in long term is one of the most expensive and inefficient way that you can possibly use in your business. This is a piece of the European food law that has been introduced in 2002. In 2005 there was the deadline for this legislation to be carried across legislation in all the European countries. I will not go into details of it. I put in bold what I expect you to know, that the law say is that the operator, which is the business owner in the food sector, must ensure the traceability of the food. This traceability has to be ensured at all the stages, on the production, processing, transport, distribution, up to retail, and there must be procedure to withdraw a product if there is a problem with it. As I read this thing says things like you need traceability, you need to take a log of everything you're using in your business process. This information has to be shared with all your business partners, at least with the next step in the chain. And this information you build, this set of forms, paperwork, it must allow you to withdraw a product. So this requires that this set of information is consistent. It can be traced back and forward to find the full history of a product. Farm to fork, we try to teach you that this sort of information must not be a burden for your company. The information you collect is imposed to satisfy a law requirement, but all of it is information you can use to improve the quality control on your business, to make a better use of your resources and your time. Avoid mistakes. I've seen company making mistakes. Silly mistake, easy mistake to make, cost a lot of money to rectify, and in particular food safety, to comply with all the food safety regulations around, quite a lot and quite heavy as requirements. But what it comes out from the farm to fork system is that your business saves time. And in my experience, in a business, the time is the most expensive item. When you pay people to do something, the cost of your staff, of their time, is probably greater than the cost of the ingredient you use over time, is more than the cost of the machinery you use. So having a system that lets you save time, this can be easily translated in money for your business. Now, how much is farm to fork going to cost? Apart from the model that is a sort of subscription-based system to use, but as we said, we will try to make it as cheap as possible. We are universities, mostly of us, so we don't have the commercial, we don't have to make money from the system. We need only the money to maintain the system, to be up and running, so the cost will be very basic cost. The system has been designed with small businesses in mind, so what we try to do is to use whatever you have in your business. We don't put any requirement on a particular hardware you have to purchase, on a particular sensor, any particular operating system. The software has been designed, it runs on your mobile phone, so you don't have to buy specialistic equipment for it, and the system has been designed to be implemented incrementally. It's not something that one day you have to take your business and turn it upside down to fulfill our requirement. You can start implementing things step by step. Every single step usually gives you a benefit in terms of savings, or in terms of money, in terms of time, or in terms of efficiency. And our goal is to, at the end of this process, can take years, you have a system that gives you full traceability, and you have replaced your procedures with something that, if you're a food producer, your interest is to produce food. That is what you want to do. You don't want to being shuffling paper, filling forms, copying numbers from one side to the other. We have a couple of examples now to show you the kind of things we do. This is one of our pilots, and that is the form they use at the moment to collect information. For all the ingredients they use, they have to copy the serial number, which is written on the box. One of the biggest flaws with this system is that, for example, they use rennet. They have this big tank of rennet. It lasts 6 months. They use it every day, so for 6 months, every day, they have to copy that number on the form. I didn't go through their documentation, because that number is copied like 180 times. I'm sure that half of them are wrong. The same is for all the other ingredients. They have to log time, they have to write the steps, and these forms gets repeated day over day over day without any significant information. So our system is basically a computer system with buttons that is linked with the sensors they use. They have to monitor the temperature, they have to monitor the pH. These information are collected automatically, and the form gets generated automatically from the fact that they are doing things. At the end of the day, they press a button, the form gets printed. We added a barcode on top, because at any point you can scan that form and retrieve from the system all the process, all the ingredient you have used. This is another example. This is from our meat pilot. On the left you can see the way they were doing things previously, which was the work by week by week. So that number, the 24 and 25, is the week number. So every time they produce and pack something, they write down the piece of cardboard with the week that thing has been produced. What happens in the business is these things pile up in their fridge. Obviously, things produced earlier are on the bottom. When they pick things from the warehouse, they dig a little bit, but they don't get to the bottom of the pile, so they end up at the bottom of the pile, ending up with a lot of food that get wasted because it doesn't even get to a shelf. It's expired before they take it off of the fridge. Our system, we replaced that number with barcodes and RFID tags, meaning that every time they fill a basket, there is a barcode reader on the wall. Automatically this barcode gets read, so we know exactly what gets put on the basket. And when they carry the trolley with all the basket in the warehouse, the system reads all the RFID tag, and you have automatic stock control. You know exactly what you have in a warehouse. Every time that someone take a basket and take it to the front of the production, it goes against the reader, and the reader checks and warns them, you're taking something that is from week 25, you have something from week 24. Without them having to do any action. They have a sort of traffic light system. When they try to go out, they get a warning if they have something better from a business point of view to use in their warehouse. This is the sort of devices we are using. We use what the company already has, if possible. We use industrial equipment or off-the-shelf equipment, very cheap, depending on what you need. These are all devices. Probably the cost of that box over there is £100. You just connect it, it's 100 euros. You connect it to your fridge and you have temperature monitoring, and you get all the HACCP forms filled for you. Or you can go into industrial devices. I think that is a pH sensor, cost over 2,000 euros. It's a professional, but we can connect to anything. We use RFID tags with temperature monitoring, which is quite expensive. I think the cost is around 20 euros, but they are reusable. So at the end of your process, you recover them and put them back at the beginning of the production. And the software we tend to write is web-based, so it can be used from a mobile phone. One of the biggest benefits, for example, this is coming from the cheese production. When you make cheese, you put the rennet, you measure the pH. When the pH arrives at a particular level, you have to stop the process. This, depending on the temperature, depending on a lot of factors, can take from 2 hours to 6 hours. The last thing they want to do is to stay there and checking every 10 minutes if the pH is correct. Before we introduced an automated pH sensor, they had to get a reading. every 2 hours. Sometimes the cheese is ready while they are on their lunch break. They come back, the cheese, the milk went past the usable pH, they have to throw it away. With this system, they can check with a mobile phone and every moment what is the pH is. And if they want, we tend not to change the way a business operates, but they could even get an automated system where they receive a text message when the cheese is ready. And well, this is how we try to give the information to the consumer. One of our major thing is that we work with businesses usually that are very proud of the way they do things. We work, until now we work with premium producers, so what they tend to do is they want to show the fact that they are doing things properly. So we have this system that we are installing in the shops that allow the consumer to read the barcode which is printed on a packaging and get all the information. We have usually locations, well, expiry date, information about the product, where the product has been. We have the food miles to show if the product is local. We have the cold chain to demonstrate that the product has been handled properly all the way through. We can show to the customer all the processes. We will know more about it later, and this is information that adds a lot of value for your product, because from the consumer point of view it increases the perceived value of your product. This again is information you have to collect. If you are doing things properly, show it to the consumer, because we did a lot of research, a lot of people like this sort of system. They give them confidence in the food they buy. If you want to know more about it, come to speak with us. We are all 10, which is somewhere very close. Stand written there. We have a map as well. And in the afternoon we will have 2 more speakers, which are from the fish sector and from the wine sector, from Slovenia and Spain, which are 2 adopters of the system. And we will give you practical example, more in details of how things have been done, how they found the system, what sort of reaction they had from customers, and come to see it because it will be interesting.